Hey gang, Terrell Davis with the Pike County Cooperative Extension Service. Today I want to talk to you about some of the instruments that we might use to take a soil sample. A lot of times we talk about how to sample, but we don't really talk about the importance of what you use to sample. So a soil sample should be a really good representative of the whole field, not just one place. If you take just one place, your soil recommendation is going to be for that one spot. So we really want to do as good job of representing the whole field as we can. So we've got a list of tools here that you might use, some that you probably don't have and could probably borrow from your local county agent, or some others that you might have on hand. I would say none of these are really expensive, so if you find one that you like, it might be worth the cost to put it in, because soil sampling is the basis of almost everything we do. So first I'm going to start out with the actual soil sampler that I use. Okay, so this one I got from NASCO. It does a pretty good job, and it does have some movable parts to it, a lot better than what I first started out with. The next one I'm going to talk about is just a square tipped shovel. I'm sure you all have that at the house. Maybe something a little bit different that you don't normally have is a bulb planter. So this is a heavy duty bulb planter that I ordered online from Walmart. Pretty good thing that I think we could use. And the last one is something a little more high tech. So I recently ordered a collect and go. And this is a really nice set here. And it has some pros and cons. You hook the auger to a 20-volt drill. And I always say make sure you have an extra battery available. So let's take some time to look at each one of these individually. Okay guys, so let's start talking off about our first probe. So when we take soil samples, we take several different cores. I want at least a dozen cores for every 20 acres. And then those cores go in a bucket and get mixed, and that's what makes a sample. So this one does a really good job of taking cores. Okay, we don't really want to go more than about 4 inches in the ground because we want to stay where the root zone is, and especially in pastures, roots don't go past 4 inches. Okay, so in this one, we put them in the ground. A good thing about this one is that it has a step. You really want to look for one with a step, and then if you can, you'll notice my sample here. I got into a big old thing of Bahia, I think, with a rhizome. But you can kind of see what my sample looks like. After I get through with it now, I'm just going to put it in my bucket. And then you can kind of see that it has these little cores to it. So I take about a dozen of those, put them together, mix them up, and that's my sample for this one. This one's really nice. This is probably the most expensive one. So I paid just a little under $100 for this one from NASCO. It is a little bit pricier than some of the others we're going to talk about, but it does do a really good job. It's very sturdy. I would imagine that this is going to last me my whole career. So I would expect to have at least a good 20 years out of this one. There's not really any parts that's going to break. Okay guys, so the next one I want to show you is a bulb planter. These are usually used to plant bulbs in the landscape, but do a really good job of being used as a resource in soil sampling. So this one I did order off of Walmart.com. This is the Yard Butler's the brand here. There are some different looks to it. It's welded pretty good. I think it would last me for a while. But here are some cons to this. One, it takes a really big sample. I need a pint of soil when you bring me a soil sample. So this one is going to give you about a pint every time you do it. So just remember that you're going to have a lot of soil in a bucket to make your final sample. And the other thing is that you're probably going to put your feet here on the top. And one of the issues with that is that if you're in your pasture, and let's just use real life scenario, and you've stepped in a cow patty, or if you've got sheep, you've stepped in some pellets, and you put your feet on top of that, you've got a big source of nitrogen probably that fell off your shoe. So consider that when you're doing this, and take a special look at what's on top. You really should remove all the grass before you take a sample. So that shouldn't be an issue, but think about that if you've got something on the bottom of your feet that might go into the top of this. Okay, so let's take a sample. Again, I want to remove as much grass as I possibly can before I ever go in. I'm trying my best to go to the side on this one. Alright, so here's what our sample would look like. If you can tell, it's pretty good representation. It's about the depth that I actually need. It is a pretty big sample there, but I would just put this into my same bucket, try to take all the grass off the top that you can, put it in your bucket, and then you would mix all of your cores together to still get your sample. So sorry, pretty good things from this one. This was my pretty well about my cheapest one. I believe this one was about $30 on Walmart.com. So our next utensil that we're going to use is probably the most common, something that everybody has. It's a square tipped shovel. Really cheap, from $9 to maybe $30. We'll just call it an average of 20. So everybody has $20 to spend on a shovel. You're going to use shovel for a lot of other things, so it's a piece of equipment that you probably have on the farm. The other thing that you need to think about that is, because you are using it for other things, just make sure that the shovel is clean before you use it. If you used it to scrape manure, or go to the chicken house and dig in the chicken litter, and then went to the field to go take a sample, obviously it's going to be skewed, and the residue is going to change what your soil sample really is. So here's some important things about taking a soil sample, okay? So when we go in and take a sample, and we just kind of pull it up from there, you'll notice on this one that there's a lot of organic matter, a lot of roots here. If we look at it sideways, you'll probably notice that there's a pyramid shape to this, okay? So that means that a lot of the nutrients are on the top part of this, and the 4 inches down at the bottom, 3 to 4 inches, is where the least amount of nutrients is. When we think about the plant growing, the root zone is really past the first 1 inch of the soil. So right here we have a collection of a lot of nutrients at the beginning, little nutrients down at the bottom. So we're going to actually probably have a soil test that says that we have more nutrients than we actually have, okay? So a way to combat that is to take your sample here, turn your shovel around, do another straight, and hopefully when we take the sample up, it'll be even on both sides. It's better, still not exact, but it's not as much of a pyramid shape as that what we had a while ago. Okay, so really cheap, really easy to use, but just know that there's some flaws in that. Okay, but you get what you get for $20. So our last one to talk about today is the collect and go. For a guy what guy does not like a method that uses power tools, right? So obviously this is one that we kind of like to do, but it's also a lot easier. I live in the foothills of the Ouachita Mountains, and sometimes it's kind of hard to find topsoil. It's a lot easier to find gravel. So this one works excellent if you have an area with a lot of rocky ground in it, okay? So what we're going to do here is put our collect and go in the bottom. You'll notice that there is a hole down there, and that's just where our drill goes through. I'm going to hold on to it. So one thing that some people don't like is the amount of soil that's sampled each time. I really like it because, again, our sample is only good as our cores are. So what I really like about this one is that it's a small core, and it makes you take several cores, and you really get a good representative of what the field is like. So if anything else, you kind of know how much soil you need to really get in a core. And that's kind of the con of the shovel and the bulb planter, is that there's a lot of soil at one time. Okay, so this one probably would take me way more than a dozen different cores to take. The only other bad thing that I have to say about this one is the actual drill part. Just depending on what kind of ground you have and what kind of drill you have. But I have found that even with the best of drills, you really need a backup battery probably to get your sampling done. You're probably not going to just do like one 40-acre field. You're probably going to do several of them before you come and send them to us. And so either have plenty of batteries on the backup, or find a charger that you can put in your truck and be charging between times. And that's kind of my only down low of this one. This setup is about $60, and there's a Collect and Go website, or you can just Google it. You can find them on Amazon and other sites. I ordered mine straight from the manufacturer. To learn more about soil sampling, visit uaex.edu.